Now, if you accept the existence of the Little Ice Age, the medieval warm period, the cooling of the Dark Ages, the Roman warm period, and so on back, it creates two major problems for the alarmists. First, you can't blame things that have been happening for centuries, millennia, or millions of years on something that only started about 50 years ago. And second, while carbon dioxide can't explain any of this natural variability, researchers have found something that very clearly does seem to account not only for the end of the Little Ice Age, but also for its beginning, and for fluctuations within the post-Victorian warming trend. And you'll never guess, it's that great big hot yellow thing in the sky. Yes, it's Mr. Sun, the source of all our power, or at least 99.98% of it. Varenholt and Looning both have technical backgrounds, and they both used to be true believers in man-made global warming. Even today, they're not deniers, except in the pejorative sense of anybody who questions any aspect of the orthodoxy. They both accept some human influence on climate. But the more they looked into the IPCC's studies, the more they realized that they were missing something really important: sunspots. I know, it sounds weird. It sounds especially weird to economists because that used to be their kind of catchword for theories whose approach to cause and effect was unreasonably eccentric. But here's the way it works. Sunspots don't directly affect climate. They're simply indicators of a more active sun. And as Looning and Varenholt point out, the IPCC and other alarmists dismiss the role of the sun because they say it doesn't get that much more or less active, and that's true. But when the sun gets more active, there is a very disproportionate increase in the strength of its magnetic field. And the sun's magnetic field shields the Earth from cosmic rays from elsewhere in the galaxy. And cosmic rays play a crucial role in seeding clouds low in the atmosphere that then reflect solar energy and cool the Earth. And everybody agrees that water vapor is a far more important greenhouse gas than CO2.
Water vapor is a very strong greenhouse gas, even more powerful than carbon dioxide.
And I'll emphasize again, water vapor is a greenhouse gas, and it is responsible for 95% of the total greenhouse gas warming of the Earth we enjoy at the moment.
Greenhouse gas was discovered by an Irish, Anglo-Irish physicist, John Tyndall, about 1860 or so. Tyndall showed that many gases, the one that's most important is water vapor, is just like glass. It will let visible light go through if it hasn't condensed into steam, but it's very, very good at absorbing infrared. And he showed many other transparent gases were like that: carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane. And he recognized even then that by far the most important was water vapor. Water in its two forms, vapor and clouds, dominates the greenhouse effect of the Earth. And CO2 sort of fills in, sort of minor roles. And yet we're focused, we've demonized CO2. They haven't had the nerve yet to demonize water, but I wouldn't want to tempt them.
I'm not going to recapitulate all the evidence in The Neglected Sun, but it's a very important book, and they lay it out in great detail, including that the sun in the latter part of the 20th century was more active than it seems to have been at any time since the medieval warm period, whereas it was extremely inactive during the Little Ice Age, especially during the so-called Maunder minimum from 1661 to 1671, no sunspots at all. And we don't just have evidence that greater solar activity increases the temperature on Earth, we have evidence that it increases the temperature on Mars. And if Mars and Earth are warming in tandem, it cannot be anything that human beings are doing. Researchers have even found signs of warming on Jupiter, on Neptune's moon Triton, and on Pluto. Now, maybe a hand is going to go up at the back saying, okay, Mr. Smarty Pants, if we know it's the sun, all that stuff you said about chaos doesn't really apply. We've just been studying the wrong thing. We have to look up, way up, so we'll know what's going to happen. Well, it doesn't help very much because, wait for it, the sun's behavior is also non-linear. Complex systems tend to be. It's a problem for the alarmists that we obviously can't go to the sun and do anything about it. You can't legislate changes in solar output. But the 11-year cycles actually vary between 9 and 14 years. The Hale cycles between 18 and 26, the Gleisbergs between 60 and 120, the Seuss de Vries between 180 and 220, the Eddy cycles between 900 and 1100, and the Hallstatt cycles between 22 and 2400. You can look at what we know it has done and correlate it with things that have happened on the Earth, but it's very hard to predict what the sun is going to do. Although, to the extent that we seem to discern a trend, the sun is going into a series of relatively quiet 11-year cycles. And that suggests that at least in the short run, what the Earth is heading for is a period of cooling, not of warming. So we have these natural cycles. We have something that seems to explain them, though unfortunately we can't really explain it. And it isn't humans, and it isn't CO2, it's the sun.
The truth is, the more I've learned about this issue and everything that contributes to the problem, the more I realize how much I don't know.